And tonight we are going to explore the bias binder foot adjustable. This one right here. This is one of the feet in the 30-foot kit. But this is what this bad boy looks like. Check this out. Hold it like this to the side. Right in here, there is an actual slot to insert your fabric. So what this foot is for, this does not fold your strips of fabric for the binding. So what this foot does, this is for pre-made double fold bias binding. So what I did, I took some of my bias binding strips I'd already cut, well, this one right here. This was some leftover binding from a quilt that I just finished. So normally how I do binding for a quilt, I will cut my 2.5-inch strips on the bias, fold it in half, press it, and sew it to the back of the quilt, flip it to the front. However, using the bias binder, adjustable bias binder foot, you have to have all of this already done. So you can buy bias binding already made, or you can make your own. There's all kinds of notions and gadgets out there to help this process. What I did, I folded my strip of fabric in half, and then I folded in, let me unfold this a little bit here. I folded it in half and gave it a good press so that I'd have a good center crease mark to fold into. And then I just folded in each side and pressed, then folded it back in half and pressed again. And that's how I ended up with this pre-folded double fold bias binding. This foot is great for garments and things that are kind of thin, because that's not a very wide slot right here to stick in the item that you're going to apply the bias binding to. It's also would be very difficult to turn a corner with. So that's where you'd have to do like a blunt end. You're not going to turn with this foot and make like a mitered corner with binding. That's not going to happen with this foot. Okay? You can sew up to the corner, take it out, do the fold, put it back in and go that way, but that's the only way you could do it. So I do not use stuff like this for my quilts. For garments and placemats, this is wonderful. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this binding to some of my downtown. These are some scraps I've got from a project I was doing. So I'm actually going to attach that to this Downtown Abbey fabric. Okay? So without further ado, we're going to get started. And what this is, if you see this, oh, I got to get my shank adapter out also. So this is not a snap-on foot like the bias binder foot that I used last week. So I'm going to have to do a little deconstruction on the needle bar. I'm going to open this up, and the part I need is, where are you? You better be in here. There you are. This is the adapter shank. Since our machines are a high shank machine, this is a low shank. This has a low shank on it. So we have to put this little gizmo on. This right here. That converts a low shank foot to a high shank machine. Solaris, Destiny, Altair, those are Crescendo, Elissimo, these are all, our machines are high shank machines. So I'm going to get that out. And then it also comes with that shank adapter comes with a little screw as well. So let's get started. We are going to deconstruct and reconstruct our foot assembly. There we go. Okay, so there's the screw right there, and here's the shank adapter. Now, first I'm going to remove, I had my J foot on, now I'm going to remove the ankle off of the machine. I'm going to slide these over here. There we go. And I've got my little multi-tool screwdriver. I'm going to have to completely remove this big screw right here. Okay. Am I? Yes, I am. Hold on a minute. Am I? Let me think here a second. Yes, I am. Okay, just making sure, talking to myself, yada, yada, yada. So, I'm gonna lower that foot. It just gets easier access to the big screw and the actual shank on the machine. Now, this adapter on one end, see that cutout? That's the exact same shape as this right here. So it'll only slide on one way. The flat side goes to that side of the ankle. So I'm going to take this, raise it, slide it up. Then I'm going to line up the hole, that upper screw, with my shank and screw this part in. I really admire people with smaller fingers because it makes it so much easier for something like this. Where are you at? Come on. There you are, right there. Okay. Okay, righty-tighty. Oh, come on you, behave now. There we go, maybe. Come on, baby, get in there. I debated on whether assembling this before, but I thought some of you might get a good laugh at me bumbling along trying to get this to fit, and it does. Yay! Ooh, that's on. Now I'm just going to give it a little turn towards me and snug it. There we go. Now that's on nice where it should be. Next, I'm going to get this screw started in the bottom hole of the shank adapter. Easier said for me than done. Come on. Come on. There we go. Oh, come on, you. Oh, do not get finger cramps. This is not the time for that. There we go. Well, phooey. Let's try it again. There we go. Oh, I felt it then. It hit the mark. There we go. Now then. Now I'm just going to slide this on and then finish tightening. I'm going to raise that foot up. And that will just slide up on that shank. And then I can finish tightening it with my little screwdriver. Do. It's almost there. It's almost where it needs to be. There we go. Now do a little tighten to lock it in place. Oh, come on now. There you go. There we go. Okay, so there we are. There it is. It's attached. I'm going to do a test drop. Perfect. Alrighty. That's the hardest part. The rest is fun and easy. But that wasn't too bad. And those of you that have smaller hands, this is so much easier to do. So, time for a sip of coffee. Now then, so right here on the side of this, let me get something to point with. I'll use these. So right here on this edge of this foot, there is a slot, and that's what you stick the fabric in as to whatever you're going to attach the binding to. For instance, right there like that. I'm going to bring the camera over this way a little bit so you can see what I just did right there. See that? Okay, all of the red markings, those are in millimeters, not quarter inches or anything like that. There's two set screws. There's one right here, and there's another one right here. This one adjusts so that the folded edge of your binding butts up over here on the right edge of it, inside the groove, because you want to nestle your binding so it just fits from this lip to over here perfectly. That's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to get my pre-folded binding, and I'm going to, so the outside edge of the binding goes over here all the way to the right on the foot. And as you can see, I've got this loosened, so that way I can adjust this wherever I want it. And what I'm first going to do is just hold it up here. Okay, so my little guide needs to come out some more, and I'm going to tighten this up for right now. I don't want this sliding on me while I'm doing this. So I am just moving this little screw right here and turning it away from me, and it's making the opening wider. You can put in a fairly large binding in this foot. That should be pretty close. Let's see what that looks like. Get that up there. Okay, I need to tighten it a little bit now, so I'm going to turn it back towards me a little bit. Right there is really good. That's really good right there. And so the cool thing about this is you can use your needle adjustment. So if you're going to do a straight stitch, you can also use a zigzag or any forward motion type of decorative stitch for your top stitching. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this like a stiletto, and I'm going to feed a little bit more through there, just so there's some under the foot. And then I'm going to insert whatever I'm going to attach the binding to, in this case, a piece of fabric. This makes beautiful edging for like a vest or a garment, or placemats and things like that. You get the idea. And what you're going to do, you're going to want that fully inserted all the way over. So there it is. I'm going to drop the presser foot now, and that kind of locks it all in place. Then I can take my time and align this better right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it all the way over where I want it and fold it back down on top of my item, in this case, Downtown Abbey fabric. Then I'm just going to spot check it here and make sure that it's not fully inserted all the way up here. So I'm going to raise that foot again, and I am going to reinsert it right up here. It's actually easier to have a little bit, make a little bit extra so that the feed dogs have something to grip on back here before this goes in, because if you line it up without it being inside of that foot, you'll get a much better result. For instance, That's what I'm doing here right now, and I need a couple of wonder clips. I'm going to move this out of my way just a hair and grab a couple of wonder clips out of my bowl over here. I've been doing a lot of quilt binding this week. I've almost got another quilt quilted today for one of my customers. I'll be doing more binding. So I'm just going to take it out. So I know I'm actually going to measure it here. Okay. So I want to pre-insert my fabric into my binding about up to that clip right there. Okay. That gives me some excess here that I can get in and under the foot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my fabric in here. Okay. And then down here, I'm going to clip it so it stays in place. See there? And I'm just going to go ahead and line it all up in here. And that'll save me a lot of hassle and problems as I'm feeding this through that foot. I like things to run nice and easy and smooth. I'm sure you do too. Now, I'm going to bring this up here a little bit further. And now I'm going to reinsert my actual binding into this foot. Make sure one more time this is right where I want it, and it is. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to insert the binding into the bias binder adjustable foot. Come on. There we go, right in there. Now get on in there. We're going to play. And you're going to play nice. Sometimes you got to talk to it. It's not going to hurt, little piece of binding fabric. It'll be fun. There we go. That's right where I want it. Now I'm going to drop my feed dog. And now I can start feeding this right on through. So I'm going to go into my sewing menu. And let me have a look there. I'm going to use Q-02, I think. No, let's go back to center. Let me move my keyboard out of the way for right now. There we go. And let me see, I'm going to move my hand wheel and see, oh yeah, that catches about 1 millimeter in from the edge. So I'm going to give that one a go, and I'm going to get it started. And I'm going to set my stitch length at 2 millimeters, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I'm going to remove this first clip, and I'm going to go nice and slow so everything feeds through the proper slot. Okay. And now we're just going to go all the way to the end. I'm just holding my finger there. That kind of puts a little pressure on it so it lays flat against this lip right here, the binding. Now I'm going to be honest with y'all, this is the very first time I have used this foot, in all honesty. But if I can do it, I know you can. You just have to take your time and with anything and just do the right amount of prep work. Okay. Now I'm going to put my finger down here so it doesn't slide out. And just keep on keeping on. And there we are. I use my thread cutter. I'm going to raise the presser foot, and I'm just going to pull it out of the back the rest of the way through. And there we have, wow, and it really does a beautiful, I could actually see using this, especially on a garment. So check this out. I got white thread in it. See if you can actually, here, put a little more light on the subject. There we go. Can you see that? There's the back of it, perfectly positioned bias binding. Think if this was like the front of, say if this was a vest, okay? There'd be the front open, there'd be the edge of your vest right there. It'd be really nice. So instead of doing mitered corners with this, one thing you could do, I don't have my scissors over here. I have one pair, this doesn't matter. I'll use this. To show you one way you could do this without doing mitered corners. I am all thumbs tonight. Okay. Okay, so what I would do if I was going to go all the way around, using this foot, this is what I would do. I would cut this so it's nice and even and flush and square like that. Then on the next go round, let me cut this one off down here. Okay, so then what I would personally do, I would take my next piece of binding and I would actually open it up and turn this end under and stitch it and then fold it back in, so that when I line this up perfectly on this end, here is where I would take the time to actually do it like this. And you'd have a squared off binding. Remember, this raw edge here would be turned under, so there's no raw edges showing out here. And then put it on like so. You could do this with the quilt as well. I've seen people do it, but I personally always do mitered corners on a quilt binding. But there's what that would look like with the corner done on that binding.